Everyone, this is the Marketing Perspective Podcast. And today I'm your host, Victor Dwyer, and I'm on the call with Marc today. Today we're going to talk about programmatic advertising beyond retargeting. And it'll be an interesting conversation. We almost never talk about programmatic advertising on here. It's more of the latest digital thing and everything else. So it'll be a very interesting perspective that Marc will have today. So I'm excited to have him on. Marc's going to tell us a little bit about himself, what he does, and then we'll dive right into the conversation. So, Marc, thank you so much for coming on today.
All right, thanks for having me. This is cool.
Yeah, no problem. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what kind of what you do essentially.
Mm-hmm. So I'm a 20-year plus veteran of 25 years actually in digital marketing, but I would say maybe 20 years or so in search. So paid search, and I was the founder and CEO at Acquisio, which is a SaaS platform to help search marketers automate budget management and bidding across like a vast amount of accounts. It's targeted at agencies, and it's a business that grew really quickly, and we sold it in 2017 to web.com. I stayed there a couple of years and then left to pursue a couple things. First, I'm interested in e-commerce. I've always thought that this is something that's I should try. And I launched a little e-commerce business that's thriving today. And but maybe more importantly, relevant to this, but I started a company with my friend Vincent called Klever. And it's a business that's aimed specifically at addressing programmatic opportunities and helping usually agencies and brands, but mid-market agencies, mid-market brands to take advantage of these opportunities and sort of get out of the mentality that it's Google and or Facebook and maybe now a few others like Pinterest and so on. But there's a lot more, if you're willing to get out of the mentality that you have to have all of your tools under one roof. I think that's what Google has made us accustomed to, that you go there, everything's there to succeed. Programmatic's not like that. It's a vast array of partners across numerous different sort of specific industries that you need to understand what tools do what platforms do what, and how to combine them correctly, what data sets to use under what conditions. It is more complicated, but the truth of the matter is like even Google is programmatic advertising. It's just, they have their own way to deliver the ads and their own formats and so on. But, the idea that programmatic is something unique or small is wrong. It's just about every ad you see, except maybe on print paper, is programmatic.
Yeah, that's great. And because at the end of the day, like, it really comes down to brand. So like, it may not be the easiest thing to track, like when it comes to things like that, and you might have really good methods of tracking everything else there, but at the end of the day, you're trying to get in front of as many eyeballs as humanly possible to really drive to your target market for people end up purchasing. And that's where Google search gets most of the benefit from the people searching on Google and everything else. But it really comes down to like getting your brand out there and getting the most eyeballs on that brand to really driving actual like business results. And that makes it where you really see the benefit of that success, and you really start seeing that. So for the audience, what does that typically look like, programmatic? So we know the process, like setting up a Facebook ad. You get the ad graphic, and then you basically launch it within 10 minutes. So like, what is the process that you would go through to really launch a programmatic campaign?
It's a little bit different because, like I said, in Facebook, it's they made it dead easy, right? You just you go there, they guide you through the process, they hold your hand, and just almost anybody can launch a Facebook ad campaign. In programmatic, there's a variety of different tools that you need to combine together to be successful. Probably the normal path would be to use what's called a DSP, demand side platform, which is the sort of the interface that you'll access that connects you through various ad exchanges. That's the source, where the ads are going to be. and where you're going to have the bidder. This is the technology that decides budgets and bids, and how much you're willing to pay for whatever outcome you're looking for. The data partners are usually accessible through the DSP, not always, but usually you'll have an area where you can select which companies you want to work with, what data sets you want to use, and then you can see what it costs to use them. This is where you can design your strategies and decide how you're going to buy media, how you're going to separate your structure, your campaigns and ad groups. It's not that different, I guess, conceptually speaking, from building a search account, except that it's vastly more complex in terms of the numbers of the partners that you're going to work with. Typically, there are numerous. So it's not a solution where everything's predefined for you. You need to understand who does what technology or what data sets to use under what conditions and so on. So experience really matters.
So breaking that down one more, what kind of targeting do you get? So when you say data sets and things like that, I assume that you're basically talking about particular audiences or either geographic locations of targeting. Can you go into that a little bit?
Of course, yeah. First, there's going to be your data, your first party data that you can bring. You can bring, you can put a pixel on your website, of course, and we can also leverage CRM assets, typically hashed emails or phone numbers. Beyond that, there's third-party data providers. There's numerous companies that offer audiences to you for a price that you can use to be more specific about who you want to show your ads to. There's also contextual, so the ability to target specific websites, specific web pages. Then there's geofencing, so the ability to, especially for mobile, to be able to understand if people have been within a certain vicinity, like a certain area, at a certain time, and to be able to build audiences with these people. And the same applies to people who've entered a geofence that after you've advertised somewhere else. Okay, I'm showing you digital out of home, like billboards and so on. I know you're close to the billboard, and I know you eventually walked into the store, or relatively close. So within some degree of certainty, you went there. So that's also a capability. Just about any audience data, any targeting data that's available inside of Facebook or Google is also available here, even keywords.
So that kind of explains the data sets and when it comes to targeting, but when it comes to the creative, so we know the best practices when it comes to Facebook advertising, really, really fast, 3-second attention grabber. People have usually shorter attention spans when it comes to Facebook and basically digital media buying opportunities there. But what are the best practices when it comes to programmatic advertising? What do you go to a brand and say, hey, we need these 3 things. We need this one thing on our creative to really drive high performance. What are those things you end up usually saying there?
Well, it's quite complicated.
Yes, and I know that's by client, by product. I know there's a million things in that. Yes.
Yeah, because we do a lot of connected TV. We do a lot of digital audio, so radio ads. So it's not just what happens on a screen. It's not just what happens on your computer or your mobile device. So it depends on the strategy, of the budget, and are we using really top of funnel stuff? Of course, you're not going to do. It's probably not well advised to have a performance campaign that only uses connected TV, for example.
Yeah,
it's probably not going to succeed. However, it's key to do that if you need to first, sort of reach a really broad audience, get to see some kind of engagement, then you can target these people. You can create an audience from these people who engage with your ad, and you can target them elsewhere, not just on TV, but on their laptop, their mobile device. So it's not that simple. It's not as simple as saying your ad needs to have a strong call to action. I mean, it depends where you're at in the funnel. If you're at the top, you're probably trying to just get them to engage with the ad. So catch them early, make sure they stay engaged, and hopefully, something stayed there. Then you can retarget them on video again, but on online video, like on their computer, YouTube, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's infinite strategies you can use to because it crosses every media type, every device.
True. And it's so important. Like when looking at the lifetime value of a customer, like it's funny within marketing, we always try to think like, oh, the customer journey is like this, but no, the customer journey is like this. Like they're going on different platforms, looking at it at different times. And the customer journey is all over the place. It is not like this linear like path. Like people are going on Facebook, they might see it. They might go to YouTube, and then they might actually start looking at the product, and then they'll go to Google search, and then they might see it on TV, and then that drives the purchase. Like there's so many like omni-channel strategies, and realizing that people are constantly changing and looking at the platforms, and they're changing how they analyze it. Like your mindset changes from when you view. You can go from Facebook and Instagram. Your mindset, the same person, your mindset will change what you're viewing on Instagram versus what you're viewing on Facebook. So that's fascinating because it's the same thing on TV. The same thing you see on a TV is going to be different mindset than what you see on a billboard.
Absolutely,
so
right.
it's really fascinating.
Go click the TV.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a different mindset each person is approaching, and it's important to adapt your advertising as close to that mindset of the platform as possible. So you have to think like within TikTok, you have to have really, really fast 1 second reactions type of thing. Like it'd be really fast engaging videos like with a mobile phone. But on Facebook, you might have 3-second attention spans where you have a little bit more time to catch that video. On LinkedIn, you might read a little more. So you might do an ebook rather. Like it's based off the offer. There's a million things and ways to calculate that, but it's important to really understand the platform so that way you can make it as native as possible. So when you are doing TV and programmatic advertising, it's important to see, okay, what are your competitors doing? Like what are they doing in this space, and seeing like how can you analyze that and basically take the successes from that as well.
You're exactly right. Yeah.
So what are some of the key strategies to really drive performance through programmatic advertising? What do you really see as the key performance factors there?
Well, there's, being as accurate as you can. Like if you're just about, depending what we mean by performance, but I assume you mean like conversions on a website, like people buying things. Yeah. Usually you're going to start with the lowest hanging fruit. Your retargeting strategies, the same types of strategies you'd use on Google or on Facebook, you'd apply with programmatic. So you get to reach a much broader audience. You're not just stuck inside of one platform. You just reach people just about everywhere they go. Mm-hmm. Excuse me.
Very good.
And then, of course, email, like leveraging email addresses if you have them. Again, in an effort to sort of bring an audience that's already familiar. And with the beauty with email is a lot of times if it's in a CRM system or you know where these people are, with regards to your sales funnel, or if they're a lead, if they're an existing client, and so on. So you can have different messaging based on who they are, and it's quite deterministic. We know exactly, at least the household of where these people live. So these would be like key in performance. But the issue with that is that you're not going to drive volume by doing that. You're going to maybe get a little incremental. But if you're trying to drive volume, you want to combine these kinds of strategies with some middle funnel and top of funnel strategies to drive volume. Otherwise, you're just extending a little bit what you're already doing with Google and Facebook. But if you really want to see dramatic shift in performance, and of course, it's important to keep an eye on your ROAS or your CPA, and that's what we do. That's what business is predicated on, just going beyond just basic retargeting with very low budgets to, no, I want to really drive additional volume. And of course, that means you need to keep a balance between that volume and keeping it feasible and sustainable, because no business is going to want to pay 10x what they're supposed to pay to run their ads. So that's where the tricky part of programmatic comes in, is that filling the top of the funnel. was it? I forget who, like one of the speakers at the same conference we went to, kept hammering that home, and I loved it. It's there's a bottom of the funnel because there's a top of the funnel. Get to the bottom, and I think, I'm a search marketer, right? I've been on both sides. I know exactly what that struggle is that we're so used to sort of harvesting that low-hanging fruit from Google. People are ready to buy. But the truth is, okay, there's a lot more market usually than just this. You can drive that, and this is where the top of the funnel comes in. So the kinds of ads we talked about, television and radio, are dead top of funnel. Nobody's buying from their TV. It's driving awareness, it's driving engagement, it's driving brand recognition. And then when they do hit the website, because you're going to continue to hit them online, they're much more likely to buy. They're prepared. They know your brand. They've heard about you multiple times. They engage with your video because presumably you're not hitting people the same way. When you run these CTV ads, you look to build good audiences with them. Who's engaging? Who's watching? Who's not doing skip ad as soon as they can?
Yeah.
These people are more valuable statistically than people who just try to leave. And then build an audience from that segment, and you can retarget them online. Even with video, where it's still not, it's maybe more middle of funnel at this point. Online video, there is a chance that they'll click through at the end on your call to action and go to the website to buy. But probably not. Again, you just keep warming them up, and then ultimately, they may come down through search and so on. At the end, I think looking at programmatic as a last click channel is a huge mistake. That's part of the challenge, is educating people, because we're so used to that, to look at the way Google Ads presents success. Still to this day, even though they're trying to do other things, still to this day, it's that last click attribution.
Can you go into everything the programmatic umbrella covers? So just all the channels that kind of, when we say programmatic advertising, what does that mean? What channels does that cover?
Yeah, I'd say everything except newspapers. So television, so connected TV. So that's obviously, when you buy a smart TV, you go home, you plug it on your Wi-Fi, and magically there's all kinds of content there. And it's not free. That content is supported by ads. These are programmatic ads. So
cool.
That's one. So it's same with set-top boxes. Oh my God, I'm trying to remember. Hulu is maybe an example, not the best. There's numerous devices that the Fire Sticks, see, this is the thing. I'm Canadian, and I know this is a little bit different. It's built into the TV, but people have these devices they put on their TV, and it's connected to the internet, and it provides you content. And the ads that come out of these devices are programmatic ads, almost always. Okay. Then there's the radio. So not necessarily radio like in your car, FM radio, no, but satellite radio, for example, so Sirius XM and so on. And then you'll have the internet, tune in and so on. Podcast advertising is more and more programmatic. Not all of it. There's a lot of podcast ads that are not programmatic. They're just old school ad networks. But more and more programmatic is growing there. Then I would say the billboards. We've seen digital billboards for a long time in doctors' offices and so on, like TV screens running ads. So these were not programmatic. These were just digital ads that someone puts a tape or whatever. It's just, However, over the past 2 years, there's a new industry called programmatic digital out of home. So digital out of home is not new. Programmatic digital out of home is new. It's emergent. It's we're able to change the creative on the fly. We're able to change the bids, so that whole environment is working really well. It's tricky because it's so new. The setup requires a lot of phone calls and, upload files to FTP server. Like the initial setup is complex, but once you're off the ground, there we're in our environment, it's again, complete control. You can, change budgets on the fly, change the bids more or less on the fly. So that's a huge segment. It's tiny now, just to be clear. Like, it's a huge industry. The
Yeah.
out-of-home industry is massive, but the programmatic digital out-of-home, I think it's about $300 million per year today, which in our industry is nothing. But we're all over it. I love it. There are clients that are seeing great results. Obviously, you can't drive your entire ad strategy on that, because it's a little bit smaller. But in some markets, it's fantastic. LA area, for example, New York, there's a lot of inventory available.
Yeah, for sure. And so it makes sense on a on a local standpoint for the ads, to kind of building that out, like when it comes to like local stores, like saying, hey, the billboard go here. But when it comes to really driving programmatic ads for e-commerce and B2B businesses, where do you see, like, what channels do you see the most success there? Or where do you really, how are you tracking that, and where do you really see the most success on the programmatic ads?
The bulk of the money is still in display ads, so
Mhm.
a little bit of native as well. I think for performance direct, like hardcore, it's even us. It's probably 80% of the revenue for Klever is.
And when you say display, that means like Google display ads, like other display
But
networks,
yes,
correct?
but not in Google, like, because
Okay.
Google Display Ads is the GDN that everybody has access to through their Google Ads account, but that's like a small fraction of the entire inventory. It's not the whole world. I know we're conditioned to say this is it, but that's not it. There's a
Yeah.
lot more out there, and so it's just opening the door to just a much larger opportunity than just what GDN has to offer. And
Okay.
Facebook's the same. Facebook ads costs have just, for most people, it's become unaffordable. And
Sure.
a lot of the things you can do in Facebook, you can do with programmatic it's much more cost efficient.
So what would you, if someone was coming to you and saying, "Hey, I want to get started with programmatic," a client, what would be the average cost? I think it was like 30,000, like, to kind of get things started. Like, what would you recommend as the average budgeting for this type of service? What would someone like basically budget for this?
Yeah, it's more of a starting point. I think that I would say probably for us anyway, we try not to, because we work on performance basis always. People have specific ROAS objectives or CPA or whatnot, so we have to have discussions on attribution to start, and then once this is well understood, we'll start typically around 10,000 per month.
Okay.
That's just as a kind of a minimum to drive value, because it's like anything. If you just don't have enough, like, because this is more top of funnel, and yes, there's some retargeting bits. It's just not worth anybody's time, like not even the advertiser's money.
Yeah.
To be frank,
Yeah.
because you need to test properly, and it's a scale play. The goal is to find an opportunity that works and scale it out. You never start with a huge budget. I mean, we don't do that. Like, it's always a little bit smaller. Prove value. Okay, can we do more with the same expected results? How can we scale this? This is usually the approach, and then we'll scale it up.
Yeah. Okay. And that makes sense, especially when we're talking about top of funnel campaigns and things like that and driving sales that way. Because like within Facebook, you can like have a low barrier to entry. Like you can spend $10 a day and like see and then scale from there potentially. But when we're talking about like top of funnel strategy and reaching out to different networks, that there would be some value there. And really the broad array of people who you are targeting and reaching out to really drive that top of funnel like success there, because
Yeah.
it's all about the eyeballs. That's all it really matters, is getting the eyeballs on your product, on your brand, to eventually drive sales. Because that's what's going to change things.
And you'll find that it's possible to spend less. By the way, I'm not saying you can't.
Mhm.
You can spend, you can spend $10 a day, just
Yeah.
not less, because we need to put some, like, we have some senior traders. We can't put them to work on stuff like that, because there's no way for us to make a business out of it. But
Mhm.
if somebody knows, or is very loves to play with that stuff, there are numerous ways to do it. You just need to understand the space, and find the right partners for you. So it's possible to spend a lot less. Absolutely. To
Mhm.
play just like you would in Facebook, with very little daily budgets and so on.
So can you go into attribution a little bit? So like how does that kind of work? So if someone sees a TV ad in a geographic area, I assume that if you see a spike in that geographic area, like let's just say Texas, like you target Dallas, Texas, and you target the ads. And if you see a spike from Dallas, Texas, you assume that, hey, we basically generated those sales. I assume that's a large portion of the
That's
attribution.
the
Is
old
that
way to
correct?
do it. Yeah. That's the old, one of the old methods. It's
Okay.
still not valid. It's just not deterministic. We have more precision, I would say, because of mobile devices. For everything we do, that's not like digital out of home, for example, is a great example. For putting billboards out, the key to success is knowing that a mobile phone was within viewing distance of one of our ads, and then seeing that they then purchase something down the road. So we can make a direct link between proximity and purchase, proximity and footfall. So that means going into the store, proximity and a lead coming in. So that's the way we do it today.
Yeah, that's interesting. So we actually have a question here from on our Facebook Live, basically saying, what's a good oh wait, this is a Facebook question. Like, what's a good CPM in 2022? But there's a variety of factors in there. But yeah, like to answer that question, it depends on the engagement of your ads and things like that. So I really can't. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it depends what you're selling. Like I'll give you an example. I have an e-commerce business. I sell, my average order value is $1,500. So my CPA is about $200, and it's fine. I have no problem with that. I'll do it all day. But you can't do that if your margin is $3.
True. Yeah. Yes, that is true. You cannot do that on that type of margin for sure. And your CPM changes on like the per stages too, because it's by engagement. So if you have to talk about like funnels, like what, like the engagement of your top of funnel, your CPM is gonna be less, and like the targeting, it's gonna be less granular. So like it's different by stage of funnel, different by product, different by like client. Like there's a million factors in that question, and that changes. There's so many variables in there. I don't have like this magic answer, unfortunately, of what the average CPM
for action. So is it like a form fill? Very low engagement. Give me your email. I'll give you $1 million. That
yeah.
Makes sense. Like everybody's going to fill that form. But if it's more like give me $1,500 to buy a red light therapy panel,
yes,
it's not the same.
True. Yes. Like it depends on your offer. Like the stage of funnel, your offer that you're doing. Like, is it an ebook or are you actually asking them to buy the product? And like the products, there's like a million factors in that. That could change.
By the way, if there are ways to use programmatic in a really performance, like direct last click, it's possible, absolutely. But it needs to be that type of situation where you're promoting exactly an ebook, like a free download that's valuable for someone, something that's really valuable. They're likely to click. They're likely to fill as long as your form's simple, very likely. So you can absolutely have a play. Last click attribution, display all day, but it needs to be something like that where they're very low engagement conversions. They don't require people to think too hard. It's like a really strong value proposition, and yes, and it's a huge business. It's huge business, but it's not necessarily the play that most people would do.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And so we actually have quite a bit of viewers on all our different platforms watching right now. So if you do have a question right now, feel free to ask it. Either for Marc or me on that side. But while the people are typing out some questions there, I did want to ask you, on the note of offers, what would you present as a good, how sometimes clients have a client acquisition product, meaning a very low cost of entry product to get them introduced to the brand. What are some good offers that you see that work really well on the programmatic advertising? Because I would assume a B2B offer would be very hard to come across, but when it comes to offers, what do you typically recommend clients to do to kind of really drive sales and get them introduced to the brand?
Oh boy, there's just a question for any kind of advertising. Unless,
True.
I don't really have a great answer for that, to be honest with you. Usually, if you want to grab people with a good offer, you need to have the right audience. You need to understand. You need to create the offer. You need to be willing to give something, whether it's a huge discount or if it's a free course or. I'm sorry, I don't have a great answer.
Yeah, maybe we rephrase it a little bit, because like, on Facebook or LinkedIn, you might give away an ebook or something else
Oh
like
yeah, for
that,
sure. Yeah,
and then or like maybe a cooking recipe or something else like that. How does that offer change from online digital advertising to programmatic advertising? Is there a difference?
well, not necessarily, no, because there's a lot of in programmatic. There are ways, for example, to capture leads directly from the creative. Just an
Yeah.
example. That you rather than get people to click on your ad to go to a landing page to then read the offer, and then you could there are many ad formats where it's right there. It's if you have a really low engagement conversion, again, like this giveaway of a free recipe book or whatever it is, something that's very valuable, an ebook, that's a good example for B2B, you can get it done straight from the ad. So rather than have people click the ad, go to the site, reread the same thing they just read, you can capture an email address directly from the creative. That's quite common, actually. Yeah,
that's great. That is great. And is there anything else that you wanted to make sure that you communicated that you see as a big important factor when considering programmatic advertising? Like saying, hey, I see a lot of people doing this and they need to be doing ABC, or like, is there anything else you would recommend that you want to make sure that you communicate there?
Yeah, for sure. I think for performance marketers, the biggest mistake we make is to try to only work with retargeting audiences and be very, very focused on the
bottom of the funnel
or the journey where they've already totally engaged. You need to do that, of course, but that's kind of like the footnote of advertising. It's by the way, you get this premium bonus of this engaged audience that you should capture too. But the truth is, it's about driving people there to create, what we call today a cookie pool. I'm sure it's going to change names.
Yeah.
Build up your cookie pool. You need to run these higher level, like higher funnel ads, drive people to your site, and then you can, sort of re-engage them because people show an interest by clicking. So just adding that one layer, and you can have a really focused audience. You should see the data that's available. It's crazy. Like there's really, really good data available for purchase, and so you can drive high volumes of clicks, very targeted clicks at a good price. Build your cookie pool, and then these things feed off of each other. You get your success then because you're retargeting them for a low CPM, and they're likely to convert, of course.
That's great.
It's adding that component of just going up funnel, mid funnel, go up funnel, and start building volume.
Yeah, that's great. That makes a lot of sense. So
another one is
just go ahead.
Attribution. Just understanding the value of ad impressions is tricky. There's not like a solution, but just being in that mindset to understand that you're creating awareness, you're creating likelihood to convert, you're creating a brand.
Yeah.
People's minds, maybe they didn't click your ad, but then why do you think your brand search is going up so much? Why is the direct to site traffic going up so much? Like typically we see this when you ramp top of funnel campaigns, huge increase in brand query and huge increase in direct to site. When you look at Google Analytics, for example, when you stop, these things fall back to where they were before almost immediately. So it's not deterministic, but it's a great way to gauge your success. If you're willing to pause for a little bit just to give yourself a gut check that am I doing the right thing? Almost all the time, it's immediate. Like conversions drop, sales drop, everything drops. I guess it is because it's hard to measure. To be honest with you, we do have the tools are there. We can see what's called a view through conversion. Same as Facebook. They're not very clear about that.
Yeah.
But that's what you get from Facebook. People saw the ad. Okay, they're on Facebook, so of course they saw your ad, and then eventually they converted. Whether they click the ad or not, Facebook is the same thing.
So we have a question from YouTube right now, and it says, how challenging is programmatic advertising in this age, considering influencers are almost taking over each social media channels? How would you answer that?
Yeah, sure. Social media is a channel, and the rest of the world is programmatic. So of course, when you're watching television, or when you're driving in your car, or when you're on some website, or when you're email anywhere, like you're not in a social. So I understand the question. Very good question. Programmatic is basically, you can think of it as everything outside of Google and Facebook. I'm sure a lot of people disagree with that, but that's how I see it. It's your opportunity to expand into the rest of the world.
That's great. That's a great way to put it too. So I bet we can go on for 16 more hours of all the different programmatic aspects, but unfortunately that's all we have time for today. Marc, please tell them how to find you, where to find your website. Just tell them where they can find all this information.
So you'll find our site is the company's called Klever. So beklever.com, beklever.com. That's our website. You can follow our Facebook page if you'd like at beklever, the Twitter account, and so on. I'm sure you may have these here. I have a poor memory. we have, but just go to the website. I think that's the best way to find us. beklever.com.
That's great. That's great. And they can follow you on LinkedIn or
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Great.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for our audience for listening and asking questions. And then Marc, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you, Victor. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. I will talk to you guys.